Welcome to the Hope Strategy Podcast. I'm Corey Blake, and I'm with Josh Steinley today. How you doing, Josh?
Hey, everybody.
Richie Norton is going to be joining us today, and I've known Richie. Have you met Richie?
I haven't met him in person, but we're like best buddies online, apparently.
You guys go back and forth.
Yeah, we're always going back and forth online, and somehow our paths have never crossed. I've met his business partners in person in China, of all places.
TFN?
Yeah.
And Jace?
Is Jace the skateboard guy?
Yeah.
He has like the longboard company? Yeah.
Oh, you met him too. Cool. So Richie is the man. He is the award-winning best-selling author of the book, The Power of Starting Something Stupid, which is published in more than 10 languages. And Resumes Are Dead and What to Do About It. In 2019, Richie was named one of the world's top 100 business coaches by Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. He is an international speaker, including TEDx and Google Startup Grind and Serial Entrepreneur. He's the host of The Richie Norton Show, which I've been listening to in preparation for our conversation today, and it's really good. He had some really great interviews on there. It's a podcast. You can find it anywhere. Where he talks about strategies for successful entrepreneurship, lifestyle, and happiness with high-profile business and self-improvement leaders. He is the founder of Global Consulting Circle, creating and scaling business models for venture-backed startups. And then you met his partners where he's the co-founder for a company called Prouduct, helping entrepreneurs go from idea to market full service with global sourcing and end-to-end supply chain. So he is one of those entrepreneurs that every time I talk to him, every interaction I have with him, he's talking about something new that he's working on in a new place with a new person. He seems to be really innovative and ahead of the curve on a lot of things. And I know that he's got a really great following online on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, where he's created some big groups and he's got some pretty great platforms that he's always spreading good. So I'm excited to talk to him.
He is always working on crazy stuff. I remember a couple months ago, I saw some post of his on LinkedIn or something, and he's making like these pods that you live in or something. It's like
tiny
a tractor.
Houses,
yeah, it's like a semi-trailer type thing. And it's like these mini houses and stuff. I'm like, how do you get into manufacturing that?
I know. I've seen that. They're like those little pod homes. And I've seen so many other products at that Prouduct company, because I think that's what he works on with them. He has the connections in China and they distribute stuff all over the world and help entrepreneurs build their brands through product. And anyways, he's got his hand in a lot of things. So I'm excited to learn all about it today.
And he seems to know everybody. When I was looking into creating a book, not just a self-published book, but like a journal type book thing. And he's like, oh yeah, I did JLD, John Lee Dumas, who hosts Entrepreneur on Fire. He's like, yeah, I did like his books and stuff. And I was like, really? That's like a big deal.
Yeah, he's very well connected. Today, we're going to talk to him about a lot of his business successes and kind of his thoughts on family and business, life generally, and how he ties hope and hope strategy into everything that he's doing in his life. He has some pretty remarkable personal stories that we'll tap into a little bit as well, with some pretty, traumatic experiences that he and his family have faced over the years where...
Yeah, he's been through some rough stuff, right?
He's been through a number of things. And a lot of people take that and it knocks them down and they don't get back up. One thing that's always impressed me about Richie is I've listened to him and seen him speak and talked to him as a friend, is he's really created. I mean, when you talk about having an abundance mentality and taking terrible things and somehow gleaning learning experiences from them and turning them into systems and processes to better yourself and better the people around you. It's pretty remarkable stuff. So we'll tap into that a little bit, but yeah, excited for everybody to get to know Richie a little bit more.
Let's bring him in.
Okay, without further ado, Richie Norton.
Something is happening in our world.
Time is very precious.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
Hope in the face of difficulty.
More than machinery, we need humanity.
Hope in the face of uncertainty.
I'm better now than I was. I'm experienced now, professional.
Changing the world can happen anywhere, and anyone can do it.
The audacity of hope.
This is the Hope Strategy Podcast with Corey Blake and Josh Steinley. So we've got this new podcast, Richie, and we were talking, Josh and I have put together a big long list of names from our networks, from people that we want to talk to. The idea of this whole thing, it's the Hope Strategy Podcast, right? Cool. And there's so much going on in the world, and we're constantly trying to figure out where we fit into this big picture. And one thing that Josh and I have had in common for our entire partnership from day one, the conversations have always been around making the world a better place, even if it's through whatever we're doing, right? Digital marketing or writing or whatever, just whatever small thing we're doing, let's just try to provide some value. Let's try to make things a little bit better. So with the world changes we've seen in the past 6 months, these conversations have kind of resurfaced, and we're like, okay, where is it that we fit into here? How do we provide value to the world? How do we continue down that really cliche, big picture idea of making the world a better place, right? But we started talking a lot about hope. And so we put together this list of people we wanted to talk to, and you were top of the list for me. I'm like, man, you know what? And you had just barely messaged me on LinkedIn the day before. And I'm like, Richie's top of mind. He's the guy for this. He has some amazing stories, so I'm excited to talk to him.
You're so nice. I don't know if I believe all that. You're sputtering me up, making me feel good inside. That's really nice of you. You're awesome. No, I love you, man. Both of you guys are awesome. This will be really fun. Yeah.
So we want to kind of run the gamut a little bit. I want to start talking personally a little bit. This is fun too, because I know you as a friend. I feel like I remember the first time we actually met face to face was when you were at BYU Hawaii, and I had just moved back out there, and I came in and I was picking your brain, and you were so nice to take some time to tell me about everything you had been working on in entrepreneurship. I was still pretty young in the entrepreneurial journey that I've been on for 10 years now. But, so we know each other, we've known each other for a while, but it was fun to go in and look a little bit deeper at some of the work that you've done. I've listened to some of the interviews that you've done. I've read some of the stuff that you've done. I'm a big fan, obviously, on social media and stuff. You're always putting good out into the world. But I want to start a little bit with some of the personal stuff, and then transition into how you got where you are now and kind of track that journey a little bit. So I'm curious, and I don't know the answer to this, so I'm excited. I mean, I know a little bit, but where did you grow up, and what impact did the place that you grew up and the people there around you, what impact did that have on you? And now that you're kind of retrospective and you can look back.
I grew up in San Diego, born and raised. My parents also born and raised in San Diego, both of them. And so, we have that.
Which part of San Diego? Like San Diego proper, or?
North County. I grew up kind of in the hills with cows and horses and
best of both worlds.
It was a small town called Ramona. And, if you kept driving up, you go up to Julian where they have hot apple pie, and it was they're famous for that. But then if you go what we call down the hill, you end up in the valley and then eventually the beach. But we had this really cool situation where we were just kind of outside, you know what I mean? We were in San Diego County, but we were also able to be a part of all the cool things that were also happening, in the city and whatever else. We go down to Mexico all the time and do service projects and have friends there. It was just that was a really cool upbringing. And, why don't I give you a real just quick example about entrepreneurship and about San Diego. When I was 16 or whatever, I told my dad I wanted a real job. I need to get a job. I need to get money. I need to do this. And my dad, he says the worst thing ever. He says, you don't want a job. What dad says that to a kid that wants a job? Yeah. He goes, you don't want a job. I'm like, what do you mean? I want a job. I want to get money. Not for money's sake, but to buy things, to go out, to put gas in my freaking car, whatever, you know what I mean? And he says, no. He's like, if you want money, he literally said this. He said, if you want money, go to El Centro and talk to the watermelon farmers. This is in the summer, and ask if you can buy the irregular sized watermelons.
Wow, your dad's been thinking about this for a while. He's had this business plan on the back burner for quite some time.
I asked him later how he got the idea just recently. I'll tell you that. And I'm like, okay. So we took out the family van, took all the seats. And my brother and I, who was 14 at the time, we went down there, talked to the farmers, and bought a bunch of irregular sized watermelons that they couldn't sell to the stores because they're oddly shaped.
Yeah.
And then we drove them all the way back up. It took 3 hours to get back both ways, 3 hours there, 3 hours back. And we called everyone we knew, the parents of all of our friends, and said, hey, the 4th of July is coming up. We have these watermelons. They're big, juicy, weird looking, but they're cheaper than the ones in the grocery store. And our car was so full of watermelons that it was seriously low riding, hitting every single.
Did they just give them to you?
No, we bought them.
Okay. You had to, okay.
My dad gave us some seed money.
Okay. So you got crowdfunding.
Yeah. Watermelon seed money. And it wasn't a lot. I mean, but then we sold them all on the 4th of July or the day before 4th of July, whatever. I think it was on the actual 4th of July. And we made more money in one day than we would have made working minimum wage the entire summer.
Yeah.
And that was when my dad was saying,
Clicks,
want a job. He wasn't saying like, don't like learn how to be skilled. He was teaching me how to not trade my time for money. And so like in that environment, I grew up learning just to kind of think differently about things.
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome. So you mentioned a brother. How many siblings do you have?
I have 3. I'm the oldest. So it's me, a brother, and then a sister and a sister. So
and is your dad an entrepreneur then with this watermelon idea? Did he, what did he do? What did he do for work, or your mom or?
Yeah. He was and is, an entrepreneur, and he would do all kinds of businesses. And what was interesting is it was really, really, really interesting because I would watch, he wouldn't just start businesses to start businesses. He was always starting them around people that lost their job, needed help. Like he was early, before the term may have even been coined or popularized, was the social entrepreneur. He was saying, how can I build this to help people, to help the community, to help others? And I watched that and just was like, wow, you know what I mean? And, he worked with professional athletes. He worked with community members, and he just was just like you and me. We all make it up as we go. Yeah. But with the thought in mind, this isn't really about money. We just respect money. It's really about meaning and how we can help others and use that to, continue the love.
Okay, knowing you and having heard you speak and talk to you quite a bit, I'm starting to see where you gleaned some of this from your parents, right? I can totally hear that. I think I met is your dad in Hawaii still? Is your dad and mom there? I think I met them right before we left at Pipeline. I ran into him and met him.
Yeah, man. And I've met your parents too, I believe.
You have. You definitely have.
We love each other so much. Josh, when do I get to meet your parents?
I don't know if we're ready for that quite. That's a whole another level of commitment.
When are you going to fly me out?
So when I think of, this is maybe a little bit of an abstract question here, but when I think of you, you have such a presence, right? There's like this persona, this Richie. I mean, I know so many people who know you, and I feel like I walk into rooms that I network in, and clients or employees or students that I've mentored or worked with in the past. It seems like when you come up, it's like, oh yeah, Richie. Yeah, I know Richie. When did you start to come in? So you've got this entrepreneurial story here, but when did you start to come into your own as Richie Norton, like this entrepreneur and, looking to really do good in the world and provide value to people? I mean, when did that transition start to happen for you? Was there a pivotal time, or was it just kind of a slow process over? That's a good question. The answer is I don't know. I have no idea. And, I don't even know if I'm still the same Richie Norton I was 10 years ago. It's funny because we set goals in the future from where we are or from our experience in the past. But think about who you were 10 years ago, literally in 2020. So 2010, you and I and Josh, we were all different people, literally. Yeah. Our goals, our thoughts, our ideas, our presence, what we were doing. So I think it's always an evolution in trying to just be ourselves. But I think what you might be asking too is when did people become aware of the things I was doing or who I am, or how do I feel like I've stepped into this role? And I don't know, man, just like you and me, I don't think I'm the greatest. I get depressed. I'm sad even when I'm smiling. I'm a real person, we're all real people. I do remember I lived and served a mission for my church in Brazil. And I was in a area that was Brazil's amazing. I was in an area where there's favelas, extreme poverty, right on the equator. It was super hot. In fact, it was so hot, we wore a tie. I would get a tie tan. You would tan through your shirt, but you could see where your tie is. It was that hot and sunny. But I remember thinking, there's so many good people, and and so many who I'm seeing in just systematic, abject poverty. And I realized it has nothing to do with them as individuals. They're fantastic. They have ideas. They just maybe might not have access to the same resources or network or whatever. Yeah. And I remember when I came home to San Diego, and I was like, whoa, carpet. You know what I mean? I was like, whoa. I think we've all been there.
And I thought in my head, one day when I'm retired at 65, when I'm rich and I've done all my things, I'm going to be able to go back and help people anywhere work their way out of poverty. And then I thought, that's a freaking long time, man. Like, I'm
21 years old.
21, talking about goals in the future when I'm 65.
Yeah.
You recognize in the United States of America, it's changing nowadays, but like that is the mentality because we've been taught that. We've been literally, the government and our companies have given us this, baited hook. Stay with us and then you'll finally be free. Yeah. I thought that's a bunch of crap. So I started thinking like, what if I could do what I wanted to do when I'm in retirement right now? And then I thought, but then my family might not have resources to be able to do the things they need to do. So then I asked a better question. How can I do what I want to do in the future when I retire right now and still earn income for my family? So all of my ventures have been around helping others, doing what I think I would want to be doing in retirement right now while still being able to earn an income.
And I heard you say something else too. And you were on, I think it was just recently that you did the interview with the Harmon Brothers or the Harmon Brothers podcast. I don't know what their podcast is called. Poop to Gold.
Poop to Gold.
Poop to Gold. Yeah.
Nasty.
But you had said something in there. There was some questions you asked yourself with yourself with any new ventures or things that you were going to start something about working mobile. Can I do it mobile? And what was that?
Sure. When I first had this idea, working mobile didn't really exist. Like we had, I'm talking 2003, 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
So social media, as we know it, didn't exist. Facebook didn't officially come out to the world till 2004. We didn't start seeing, LinkedIn, YouTube till years later. YouTube's like 2006. LinkedIn's even later. Yeah. You see, like Instagram's not till 2011 or 12, something like. So saying it now makes more sense. So back then, it was like an impossible thought. You know?
Yeah.
But at one point, as social media is becoming a thing, I started thinking there's a constraint, and the constraint for most people, including today, almost 20 years later, is that people have to work from where they work.
Yeah. They have to work from where they work.
I'm like trying to figure out how to say it.
They have to go somewhere to work. They have to go to a place of work in order to work.
That's as plain English as it but what that means is your life and your lifestyle and your ability to go and do things outside of the 30-mile radius that you live in is completely capped.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have to ask a boss for permission to coach my kids' baseball team. Seems messed up to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want 14 days off of paid vacation or not paid vacation, which most people don't even take at all. That doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I thought, how can I do this work, what I want to do in retirement, helping people right now, make money for my family I give myself a constraint from my cell phone. Okay. I get the cell phone is still a tether, but it's mobile.
Yeah.
And so as you fast forward to today, there's literally nothing I couldn't do from my cell phone. Like sometimes you're like, oh, I need a computer for this or a computer for that. But then you can think, actually, no, I don't. Maybe I can ask someone else to do it on a computer if I need to, or I can find a computer or bring a laptop with me if I have to. But with that idea of being mobile, we've been able to travel the world for months and months, 6 months at a time, longer, shorter, and not skip a beat. And it was by design. It's not easy, but it's by design. Yeah.
You're speaking Josh's language, and I'm guessing Josh has said something. This notion that you shouldn't have to ask a boss, hey, is it okay? Is it okay if I leave to go spend time with my family or to coach? That's something we talk about a lot. That unlimited time off type approach.
I never asked even when I had a boss. That's why I got fired from all my jobs.
There you go. It didn't
take long. That's awesome, man. I think, again, that helps kind of build in my mind some background and the context here.
Here's what I haven't mentioned is 2007, my brother-in-law, he was living on and off with us here in Hawaii for 5 years. He died in his sleep. And it was totally unexpected. He was healthy, normal, vibrant, just out of nowhere. So when that happened, my wife and I, the tragedy of it, we were thinking, wow, aside from this being the worst things that ever happened to us, maybe we don't live as long as we think we're going to live.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not going to reach 65, right?
Yeah.
And then what a horrible thought. I actually interviewed over 300 people, mostly in person, in the twilight of their lives, so to speak. Some people don't like it when I say that, but and I asked them, well, what worked, what didn't work, and they'd all say, many would say something like this: I waited for a time when I'd have more time, more experience, more education, more money, only to get here and still not have time, education, experience, and money that I need to do this thing.
Yeah.
I was like, well, and the successful people, they just did it where they were with what they had, leveraging existing resources. So I thought, okay, there's no reason to wait. Waiting is not a thing. In fact, if you fail, great. At least you can learn that thing you were going to fail when you were 65 wasn't a good thing to be waiting for.
Yeah.
Learn and change. Then in 2010, we had our fourth son. We named him Gavin after my brother-in-law, Gavin. And he got this little cough. It was, we took it seriously, took him to the doctors, and several times. And eventually they kept us in the emergency room and they said, look, we didn't think it was a thing. We thought it was RSV. We still don't know what it is. Finally, they checked for something called pertussis, also known as whooping cough. And he had contracted this communicable disease, which is why I'm so sensitive to what's happening right now with COVID stuff, because it's a communicable disease, right?
Yeah.
My son sat there, laid there, 3 months old, while my wife and I just prayed. My wife is like an early blogger, talking to the world, telling them what's happening. We had people, thousands, tens of thousands from all over the world praying for our son. One guy even said he was from Istanbul and stood up all night praying for him. But I remember a nurse came in and they took off all the wires and all the things, and I held him for a moment, handed him to my wife, and we just sang him lullabies and prayed, and I put my hand on his little heart, and we waited for those last beats, and he passed away. And it's your worst experience as a father, a provider, a protector to have this happen. And we left that hospital empty-handed, and the world never felt heavier. And someone asked me later, a mentor of mine, she said, what did you learn from your brother-in-law passing away and from your son passing away? And my wife's like, asked me in the ear, and I'm like, I don't know, what a horrible question, Why would you do this to me? But I really thought about it, and I came up with what I call Gavin's Law, which is live to start to live. Live to start those ideas that are pressing on your mind, and you really will start living. Because so many people are walking around not knowing what to do. What do I do? Worried. And it's like, you have this idea.
Yeah. Do
it. So when you ask, like, when did I come into myself? Man, I just feel like every time I'm going up, I get beat down. You know what I mean? I go up, get beat down. Like, my son got hit by a car and almost died. My wife had a stroke and lost her memory. We had 3 foster kids that we were going to adopt after 2 years. That didn't work out. Like, over and over, we've just been beaten down over and over and over again. These things, these lows, are actually what make us more than these highs. But with that concept in mind, live to start to live. And that's why I wrote that book, The Power of Starting Something Stupid. Because I quickly learned successful people don't just start things. They start things that they maybe necessarily didn't really want to do, or they said was stupid, or it was crazy, or people said they were insane, but it was inspired.
Yeah.
So I think that's where kind of the awareness came, was when I wrote the book.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you telling that story. It's one I've heard, and it's powerful, I think. And I want to touch on it. I actually have some questions about that I want to, and
sure,
some insight that I have,
or
that I want to get from you on that. I'm going to take a step back, and then we're going to come back to that. Cause I want to talk, especially because I was there on the front line, so to speak, with Lincoln's accident, there in that community on the North Shore, and kind of when that whole thing went down. And I was also there when Gavin passed away and did the 5K and stuff. And I want to go back a little bit, because as you're talking, it's so easy to like gloss over so many things that are going on right now, right?
You have to. There's just too much. There's too much.
But I do want to know right now, what are you working on professionally? Because I'm seeing, me and Josh are again talking about this. I see the courses, I see the product stuff. We see the home, the pod homes. What professionally are you working on right now from, the North Shore of Oahu, where you live, and all the traveling you do, at least did before? COVID hit and stuff. But what are you working on right now?
Nobody actually knows what I do, and I actually kind of like that.
Yeah,
it's because I don't want to be stuck in a box. I don't want to feel like, oh, I can't do this, and I have to rebrand, and I have to like teach people what I'm doing now. Like, no, I do everything, or I do nothing. I don't care, right? That's just kind of my vibe. But at a high level, I quickly realized when I wrote The Power of Starting Something Stupid, after starting many stupid ideas, I quickly realized that when people started. First of all, when I wrote the book, I didn't know people were going to reach out to me and ask for help. I wasn't thinking that far.
Yeah, you didn't have that foresight. For sure,
I just wrote the book. And I quickly realized talking to them that I couldn't be the subject matter expert on their stupid idea because they were anything, right? But I could focus on meaning to them and their family first, and then meaning to the people that they were going to work with, which would be part of a larger framework and business model. So I focus on frameworks and business models. So when people look at the output of that result, yes, I make over 100 different products with different clients. I have clients that are in corporate with Fortune 100, and I work with students, and I work with anyone you can imagine, because I don't care what it is as long as it's in line with helping other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I also realized quickly people would tell me their stupid idea of what they wanted to do. And I go, cool, you can do it. You can make $1 million, whatever, who cares? Like, awesome. And they would, not an exaggeration. And then I realized they didn't even want to do that idea.
Yeah.
They wanted something else at the end of the rainbow. So they would start this stupid idea, make it successful, thinking it would give them time with their family, vacation, travel the world, whatever. And it wouldn't, because they just got busier. And I learned that real quick. So now after people tell me all the things they want to do, then I say, well, then what?
Yeah.
And then I say, well, look stop tiptoeing up to your goal. What if we just take that goal? Let's just use travel with your family as the example, and put that at the center of your life, like living in a castle. And let's build systems and strategic and economic moats around the goal. And so you're living it now. Like, we're literally fast forwarding 10 years and making your future your present. And so when I teach people that, they freak out, because all of a sudden they realize the thing they thought would take 10 years could happen today. And this is a real thing. It's really, two people can have the same job doing the same thing, making the same money. One has all the time in the world, the other one doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it's a system. We concrete systems as we go. So I start with prioritization of attention as opposed to managing time. People who manage time don't have time. I've noticed. They have no time.
Yeah.
So what am I doing? Yes, I do coaching, I do consulting, and I do online courses. Why? Because that's what people ask for, and I like it.
Great.
I have a company called Product where we make from beginning to end, literally idea to implementation. Just the most bizarre things people come up with, physical products. So we will help them literally create it with CAD design, prototypes. We'll work with in person where possible. Manufacturers will do the packaging. We'll make it gorgeous. We'll do Kickstarters if we have to with them. And then we'll do the shipping, the warehousing, and the fulfillment, like literally end to end. If an entrepreneur wants to create a physical product, there is nothing they have to do other than sell, because the back end's done. And I did that because people kept asking for little things. And I kept saying, instead of sending them there or teaching them how or whatever, which I still do, why not also offer a service that's just done for you? Because people get stuck in the how. I'm just like, the how doesn't matter anymore. Go sell. Right? So it's about speed, velocity, accelerating it, which then has me into all kinds of industries like, yes, tiny homes, camera gear. We make more yoga pants than you can imagine. I'm embarrassed to say, and on and on and on and on and on.
Josh, you were going to ask something, I think. What were you going to ask?
Yeah, well, I got so many questions, but one thing you said, Rich, is you mentioned two words that jumped out at me: goals and systems. I was reading some tweets from Scott Adams the other day. He's the guy who writes Dilbert. And he said, goals are for losers, systems are for winners, or something like that. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that quote?
I don't know about losers and winners, but I'll tell you this. And I'm not going to use the word system. I'm going to use the word decision. If I have a goal to write a book, I will always have that goal. But as soon as I decide to write a book, as soon as I make the decision to write a book, the book is written. The system's in the middle. So goals are great for like seeing where you want to go, but they're worthless unless you make a decision, including micro decisions, to actually make it happen. To me, decisions are way more important than goals. And the system, though, to answer the system part, yes, you need systems, but I'm going to be honest, most people create wrong systems. I'm a Six Sigma guy. We learned that process and procedures and policies are 80% of your freaking problems because you're stuck. They were made for some weird, obscure rule that it doesn't apply here. That's why we have terrible customer service whenever we call our phone person or our cable person. That's why. So as long as you have the goal to have systems, like I said, let me say the analogy another way. If I want to live in a castle, but I start with a moat, the systems, I will always be in the moat. The moat is work. Mm-hmm. If I start with the castle and then build a moat, maybe simultaneous or later or not at all, because no one's trying to kill us, you know what I'm saying? Then you immediately build systems to support the core, and then you can put the drawbridge down and leave and come back whenever you want.
Cool. So speaking of decisions, a lot of stuff's been going on with China and the US lately. I mean, there's COVID in China, but also just international relations with China. And that's where a lot of your stuff gets done, right? So have you had to make some decisions about how to change things to still get stuff done?
100%. We talk about China a lot because let's face it, up until now, that's where most things are. And let's also be honest, when someone says it's made in America, they're winking. Because
it was assembled in America.
It may have been assembled in America. And so that's a terrible thing to say for go America. And you're like, fine, if you want to make yoga pants in America, I dare you to spend $500 million on all the infrastructure it will take to do it in large, right? Like this is a real thing. So that's why China, and that's why everyone, in quotes, goes to China. That said, yes, what's happening now is terrifying in like every way, shape, or form. And we actually don't just make stuff in China, we make stuff all over the world, including in the United States of America, you know, like that. So really it's not always about where, it's about the goal and the end result. But yes, we are making shifts where possible and making things in various countries around the world. And again, we're making these things for clients. So it's kind of up to them, you know, based on costs and systems and timelines. But even more so, if you're in one of these industries that I'm in, like sourcing, product creation, you realize it's not even just about what's happening there. It is at the borders of when it leaves and when it comes to the States or wherever you are. That tariff war and shipping war that's happening right now is honestly in right now a greater threat to most businesses than the socio-political economic environment in China right now. Mm-hmm. It's a result or a cause of what's happening there, but we can't control that. You know what I mean? So yes, we're doing our best to hedge risk and make things not only in China but other places. And I'll back up even further. Like I was one of the first people, at least in my circles, to talk about COVID. And that was because our Chinese partners were telling us what was happening in China. And I put my hand up in the air and said, guys, look what's coming. And I was hated. You know what I mean? And like, no, it's not, you know, and whether you believe it's real or not, like, please don't be an idiot. Like the effects of what's happening are irrefutable. So we worked with our clients way early, not only to help people in China, legit, and help people in the States now, but to prepare for this wave what was coming. And a lot of our clients who are still making like things continuously are ahead of this curve. I'm talking seasons and seasons or years ahead of the curve, because we knew and we know right in this moment right now that as soon as everything comes back online, it's going to be like lines at Costco. Like it's going to be out the door shipping. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. So we see that and we prepare for it. You know what I mean?
We're kind of in the same boat. Our agency has an office in Hong Kong, and we do a lot. I mean, we do a lot of like hospitality tourism stuff in China. A lot of our clients are hotels.com or Marriott, so we saw in November, December, January, end of November. And then that's when we were like, oh, this is getting real quick. We're starting. And so we started to prepare for it in the States, and sure enough, it came. And I remember watching some of the stuff you're putting on Facebook, some of the videos that you did, showing some of what, and I've thought about it multiple times as I've seen it happen. I went to Best Buy to grab something the other day, and there was a line all the way around the corner at Best Buy because it had just barely opened. And you've done a really good job of seeing the future a little bit, because you were able to see the past, because we've been dealing with it a little bit longer in Asia. And so this kind of ties into a question that I have for you. And you're the systems guy, right? And I think of a lot of the videos that I've watched from you, or the times I've heard you speak or something. You have a lot of acronyms and a lot of, Gavin's Law, for example, that again, we'll talk about a little bit more, but it seems like you have a knack for taking maybe a complex idea or a complex process and really simplifying it down to something that, again, is systematized, right? But also has a clean process, which is so valuable. What is your system or process for creating these systems and processes? Do you have, like, when you look at how do you intake all of these big problems or these big issues or whatever? And then what's your process for formulating that into these systems that you can then teach?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Well, I'm a teacher. Like everything I do is I do it and I teach it. And then I teach it and I do it. And I get feedback from people. You know what I mean? I see what resonates, what sticks, what's relevant. For example, on COVID, I remember at one point, no one was getting it. And so I wrote, the world will be known as before and after COVID. You remember this?
I do remember this, yeah.
And it was like a shock and a punch to the gut. And I got hate. Like I've never gotten hate.
I read through the comments on that. Yeah. And that was what, January probably?
So it was
February?
early. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like when you can say something succinctly, I wasn't trying to be polarizing. I was just like saying it in a way that could be remembered.
Yeah.
And that was also something.
So do you think through that a lot? Or is that like, what do you think, how can I phrase this in a way, or do you know what I mean? Or is there a lot of thought and time that goes into that strategy? No. Or is it more just like?
No, it's a good question. I'll explain it. And it's not about shock value. I'm not a fan of like clickbait. That has nothing to do with it. It's about speaking crisp and concisely, which I might not be doing on this podcast, by the way.
We're going to edit it so it sounds like you were.
All right. Thanks.
You're killing it.
So it's not about like jaw-wrenching, jaw-dropping, get excited, slap in the face junk. It's about taking things that are really important and, like you said, making them simple. So the reason I use acronyms is because they're memorable. So like, for example, START. When I say live to start, start to live, I actually teach even deeper because people will say, how do you start? So I did some, through my research when I was writing the book, it took me freaking 6 years to write that thing. I made up an acronym for us. How do you start? Serve, thank, ask, receive, and trust. There's nothing really you can't do if you don't serve others first, thank them for the opportunity to serve them, earn the right to ask without being a mooch. And it's not, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's not transactional, it's transformational, right? Serve, thank, ask, be open to receiving. Like when you're playing football and the quarterback throws the ball to the receiver, he's meant to catch it and score. If he were to swat it out of the air, put his knee down, or be silly with it, everyone would be angry because there's a whole team helping him. Yeah. So you receive it genuinely and then you trust. So serve, thank, ask, and trust. So that's just an example. So I also write in circles on purpose, if you've noticed. Like I'll say like, don't do this, but do this, and then it's kind of flip some words around. These things are highly memorable, quotable, tweetable. It's like poetry. Now, do I think about it a lot and do it? No. Usually it's just top of mind. I'm thinking about it. I write things as fast as I can. I get them out as fast as I can. So
but it's kind of repetition, right? It's habit now. You've done it so much.
Now it's become a habit.
Yeah.
But if I think of a cool phrase, I will write it down, sit on it, and come back to it and play with it. So I mean, the key to writing these quotable phrases or creating acronyms and whatever else is relevancy. So think about this. You don't have to answer this question, just rhetorical, but like, what do you remember from college? Like, what do you remember from high school? What do you remember from when you were in elementary school? You don't remember much. You only really remember emotional experiences and a few touch points that were transformational, and then a few phrases. The thing is, phrases create transformations, right? And so you can work backwards on social media. So when I write on social media, people also ask, how do you write so much? Why do you write so much? Why do I write so much is because I don't care. If you don't like it all, then you can unsubscribe. But also I realize the way the algorithms work, not everybody sees it twice. It just spits it out in different ways. So it's always different. On the other side of it, what I've learned is I get incredible feedback from people, whether they like it or don't like it, what worked, what questions they have. And when they ask questions, then is how I create content. Then I realize, oh, this is a thing. I should go deeper into this. Then I'll create some
user testing, right? Yeah.
I'll create, and it's not on purpose. It just happens, right? It's
no,
all
it's
just
the way it works.
Doing it. And then if it's really a juicy thing, I might create a whole article about it, or make a video about it, or maybe even do a podcast about it. In that way, people can consume the content where they are in the way they want to hear it.
Do you have systems in place or habits that you formed over time for content creation? I think that's one of the, and you mentioned, people ask you, well, how do I start, right? Start something stupid. Okay. How do I do that? But for me personally, One of the big hurdles that I've always tried to, Josh and I have talked about this a lot over the years, is trying to figure out how to get in the habit of creating content and feeling genuine in the content that you're creating. I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, right? Is how do I'm never going to be Gary V, right? Like he's just a different beast that's not in me. But do you have habits or kind of systems that you've created for yourselves to help you, stay on the precipice of content creation and stuff like you're talking about?
That's a great question. And I'll answer you specifically, but let me start just high real quick. Like for me, like my values are, and yours, influence the world for good. Mm-hmm. Make a deep and large and wide impact. Then I also say, but I need to be able to do it from my cell phone and without sacrificing my family. Like it's amazing to me that so many people are willing to work so hard so that one day they can be with their family at the expense of their actual family. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they're okay, they're comfortable replacing their family with work. And it's like, why do you do that? See, and that would be another one of my catchphrases, right? And then I could dive deeper into it. So as far as actually creating the content, literally if I have an idea and it comes back to bite me, I know, I will just say it on social media. I will just say it. Now, I obviously am not trying not to say horribilizing things or things that are going to be wrong, but I am just getting it out. Now, some people are scared to write it on social, so they could write it down in notes, or whatever. Here's the idea. When I was in high school, I was a punk rocker, like a legit. Okay, like that was what I did every single day. I was in a band, guitar, sing. I was at 18 and a half. I was offered a 5-year contract for our band to go travel and tour. And
oh man, where do we dig this music up?
We'll talk about that later.
I got to hear.
Yeah, we need details here.
That's going to be the intro and outro to this podcast.
We were playing on really cool stages, really cool bands. That was my life. But what happened was my habits. I always carried in my pocket a piece of paper and pen for ideas for lyrics, or somehow I try to cleverly write down the tune that was in my head. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's all coming together now. I didn't know you were a songwriter too. That helps.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah.
People see me as a business person, entrepreneur, because that's what they see. But I just like making music and being an artist. I'm really just putting things together. You know what I mean? That's what's fun for me. And when cell phones became a thing and I could use a smartphone and write things down, because I couldn't read my handwriting anyways on a piece of paper, I just started writing it down on social media and getting immediate feedback. I'm like, oh, feedback from people is cool. You know what I mean? And then we dig deeper. But let me give you something really specific for people that don't want to just post and post and post and post, because that's not all I do. Let's use an example for an article on Medium. format is everything. So if you have the format and you look at a really killer format, then you can fill in what needs to be written where and how. Okay. If I'm writing a book, every time I get an idea for the book, it's a bullet point in my head. I'll send myself an email and with the bullet point and label it in Gmail, book ideas. So then later when I am writing the book, I'll create a temporary table of contents. So let's just say there's 10 chapters, 12 chapters. I will find all the bullet points over time, which could have been years, and see where they fit into the chapters. Then once I have all the bullet points organized within the chapters, then I can develop a story, a principle, and an action, like call to action under each bullet point. Now all of a sudden I have a full outline of a book written. And then I learned from a guy named Andy Andrews. We used to put on conferences and he would speak and I would drive him around. He taught me to look at really popular, good, and I don't always do this, I'm really bad at it, but it was his idea. It's a great idea. Look at good articles that pop that you like. And obviously you're not going to write that article or even that topic, but look at the format. 10 a.m., Rio de Janeiro. Okay, why couldn't you write 9 a.m. wherever you're at right now? See what I'm saying? Because articles are written in a way to be read. Most people write really boring stuff. And it could be good, but they made it like medicine instead of like a spoonful of sugar with the medicine. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This isn't like writing is an actual art. It's very difficult. It's extremely stressful. You can say the wrong thing and it can be misinterpreted. It can be boring. But at the end of the day, like if it's relevant to the reader, to the listener, to the audience, to the student, most classrooms are so ineffective. Boring is the wrong word. Most classrooms across America, and I know this, I've spoken at tons of universities, worked with tons of professors, worked with presidents of universities all over. It's not about being boring. It's about not helping the audience realize that what you're saying is relevant to them today.
Yeah.
You could be the slowest talker, so boring, but if they think it's going to help them, they will listen and they will put their freaking cell phones down.
Yeah.
If it's not relevant to them, they will check out. It's a problem. And just because they have their cell phones up doesn't mean they're not listening. And they might be looking up your stuff or they might be watching a video. But if they think it's relevant, their life will be changed.
Yeah. Man, I'm excited to go back and listen to that specifically for the process of getting ideas down. And then, like you said, kind of having that index basically to go back and work from. That's awesome. So, okay, man, you've been so gracious with your time. We really appreciate it. I want to tap into hope. Okay. I want to talk hope right now because again, you touched earlier on some pretty traumatic life events that have happened to you and others, who are maybe listening to this or know somebody, that people go through hard things. We all go through really hard things. You have been vocal and really, like I said before, done a great job of taking some serious things you faced and translating that into ways to help other people. And it seems to help you and your family, Natalie, and the kids and everything improve. In those dark moments, whether it's, your brother-in-law passing away or your son passing away, or when Lincoln got hit by the car and it looked like who knows what's going to happen. And then Natalie, had her kind of breakdown after all of that and had some serious health issues. First question, why? Why hope in those moments? And then the second follow-up to that is how? How do you find hope in these dark moments? And again, we're drawing on some pretty serious life things here for other people that might be, smaller, but in the thick or thin of entrepreneurship, business ownership, family stuff, whatever. In this case, obviously, you've got some real great wisdom that you can help us with. Why hope in those moments, and then how do you accomplish that hope?
No, great question. And let's tackle it head on. This is the real stuff. I don't remember, but I think the definition of hope is something about an expectation of things which are not seen, right? We just believe that it's going to happen. And on one side, if you don't believe anything positive is going to happen to you in the future, in any part of your life, that means you have no confidence, not in yourself necessarily, but in your future. And with no hope and no confidence, you end up doing nothing. And I'm not talking about procrastination. I'm talking about literally nothing, right? So we don't even consciously think about it, but we hope we can walk. So therefore we can stand up and walk, right? But let me get real here. Like after a series of tragedies, yes, death, stroke, our kids, foster kids that came and went, and my son getting hit by a car, in addition to some other things, I remember walking on the North Shore over by Velzy Land, and my son was still in the hospital, and I had to run home to grab something, and I thought, I just need a breather, I need to walk. And I remember thinking, does God love me anymore? You know what I mean? And I remember thinking, well, yeah, of course he does, but why? Like, why me? We start going down that rabbit hole. And then I started, instead of thinking emotionally, I tried to think a little more logically. And I thought, the only thing tying this together is just my family. Like, these things happened within my proximity. Like the death of my son had nothing to do necessarily. I guess you could think of the butterfly effect all the way up, but necessarily it had nothing to do with my son getting hit by a car. These are separate events. So then I thought, because a lot of people, I started thinking about others who go through trials. And by the way, people do often say, oh, it's hard on me, but it's not as hard as what you're going through, Richie. And I try to remind them that there's no comparison in pain, that pain is like gas. If you stub your toe, anything, like it fills the whole room. Pain fills the whole room, big stuff and little stuff. So I try to help them remember that. And I remember thinking, love God unconditionally. Because a lot of people will put conditions on daddy in the sky, right? And they'll say, he doesn't love me because this happened. Or if you love me, do this. And I don't think that's proper thinking. I think that God loves us unconditionally. Therefore, we should love God unconditionally. And I've never heard that taught in that way, love God unconditionally. And when I thought that as a little inspiration that I had, it actually kind of cleared the clouds, because now all of a sudden I can maintain my faith and my love, in a higher power. And at the same time, put what's in my hands back into my hands and do something about it. Does that make sense? And so it's really hard when people go through a tragedy and then they also lose their faith, whatever faith it is. That's like a double whammy, right? So there's a whole thing, like grief is difficult. And I remember reading a grief pamphlet, and it's after my son died, and it said something like, and I've been sharing this for forever. It said, this is about hope too. It says, it's a tunnel, not a cave. So when you think about your tragedies and the hardships that are going, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's dark, but it's a tunnel, not a cave. The only thing that makes it cave in on you is if you stop walking. And it's a horrible thing when people try to like support you and love you and give you like ideas and thoughts, and you're like, you don't even understand, like it actually can hurt sometimes more. And so sometimes people don't say anything at all. And that's also hard. I get it. But at the end of the day, it's not about moving on, because these experiences don't disappear. It's about moving forward. It's about getting better, not bitter. And it's about taking like these experiences we had and building and stacking on top of them to make it like turn that tragedy into triumph. The idea is, when my son was passing away, my wife and I holding hands over his little bed, almost like a little altar. It was a horrifying thing. We thought this could destroy our marriage. And it might, even statistically, it does. And we said to ourselves, we will commit to each other. We commit that we will live better because of him, not because of what happened to him. So at the end of the day, when it comes to hope, it's okay to feel like crap, and it's okay to not beat yourself up for feeling down, because a lot of people beat themselves up when they feel down.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will be on a high and they'll feel good even when bad things are happening, and they'll beat themselves up for feeling good when terrible things are happening, right?
Yeah, they'll think I'm supposed to not be happy right now. Right
now. Yeah. Right. Even amidst the whole COVID thing, a lot of good things are happening, but we're all scared to talk about it because terrible things are also happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is it's okay to feel how you feel and accept that. And also the hope is it's a tunnel, not a cave.
That's fantastic. No, I appreciate it. That's great. I mean, that's exactly that's why we're doing this. That's what I'm excited to hear all of the different perspectives on this, right? Given the things that people face. What gives you hope right now, kind of taking a step back from all of this, right? All of we've been talking a lot of granular details of things that have happened to you. What gives you hope right now for the future? We're between the race tensions and things that are happening in the States right now and how that's really picked up recently, the COVID-19, kind of running its course and picking up again, and a lot. I mean, I'm in Arizona where we're now the hot spot, and people, it's kind of picking back up like a lot of people predicted. I mean, what gives you hope just generally a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? What are you hoping for?
It feels like, and I hope this is true, it feels like we're more awake collectively, regardless of what side you're on of different topics and issues and why and this or that. The conversation has started. It feels like we were all, even at work, even the way we work, we were all asleep at the wheel. University, all the way down to kindergarten and education, the way the stock market works, the way that people think about issues regarding human rights and racism, the way we think about health and our systems. Like, isn't everyone just all of a sudden awake? You know? And that's the beginning of the conversation. Like, it is brutal right now and it's very sad and people are being very hard on each other. And isn't this the way we begin to create progress, by a conversation? You know what I mean? So that gives me hope. And then specifically, like, I actually got really, really busy with COVID because I was trying to save the world. And I don't need to save the world. You know what I mean? I'm not the savior, but I wanted to do my part. You know what I mean? And I got so busy trying to help China with all their things and what's happening in the States and just whatever, that at one point I realized I need to slow down. You know what I mean?
Everybody else was slowing down and you were...
I've always felt, it's weird too, because I always feel like I'm doing nothing. I know like tons of stuff I do and it's all this output, but because I've created systems to like start them and then let them run and then I come and go and I do what I really like doing, I never feel like I'm working. So the trap in that is I'm always doing these things. You know what I mean? I don't even realize it.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah.
So what this forced me, even with all the things I teach and do, you know what I mean? You can imagine. So this moment in time has really made me, quote unquote, slow down in a way that I'm just like being even more conscious and more aware of what's happening and prioritizing my attention on my family and what's happening. Because one thought, if you have a kid that's, let's say they're 13 years old and it's going to take you 5 years to be successful, your child is already out of the house by the time you're successful.
Yeah.
That's a problem. So unless we slow down and build systems around the child at 13 years old, we're going to miss out on their childhood. And so that's what gives me hope, is slowing down and putting what first things first, so to speak, prioritizing attention, and the fact that we actually can because of technology is very hopeful.
One of the things that I think is great that has come out of this COVID is that so many families are spending more time together because all the schools are closed. Kids have to be at home.
Yep.
And I know that's tough for a lot of parents, but at the same time, I look at that and I'm like, maybe that's a good thing.
We moved back to Arizona May 1st and we lived here 3.5 years ago. And I was driving home the first day we were back and I'm like, man, there's so many people outside, like families walking. And so I was like, is that how it always was? That feels like a Hawaii thing. I feel like I'm, on the North Shore again. But I talked to my brother-in-law who lives up the street from me and I'm like, is this the norm or is it picked up? He's like, oh man, like you never see people walking with their families until the last 2 months. He's like, everybody's outside and
yep.
I love the insight, Richie. I really do. It's a tunnel, not a cave. That sentence right there kind of paints a vivid picture of what we have to look forward to. And again, we're right there with you in this whole idea. Josh and I have talked a lot about in our business partnership and our personal relationship that not until we face true confrontation, true difficulty, can we really stretch ourselves, learn and grow and get better and create those systems and processes. And asleep at the wheel with, like you said, education, we're seeing that completely thrown on its head. I mean, flipped upside down, whether, like you said, universities that are now figuring out, we should have been all online and provided way more resources years ago, but we were asleep at the wheel, as you put it. And now we have to, and with our marketing agency brands and people that we work with that just were comfortable not being online and not doing a ton of stuff digitally are now saying, oh geez, we have to do this. And not just to survive and make money, but to, again, continue to provide value to communities and to countries and to economies and, whatever else. So, across the board, I'm with you. I see that hope and that vision and that optimism for the future. And we really, really appreciate the time today, again, imparting some wisdom based off of life experience and just being a super smart dude. We really appreciate the insight and the conversation today.
No,
Josh, you got anything else before we wrap it up?
Thank you.
No, just where's the best place for people to get a hold of you, Richie, and follow what you're doing?
Thanks. RichieNorton.com. And I have a thing called the 76-day challenge. So if you go RichieNorton.com, it'll be there, or you can go /76-day challenge. My son lived for 76 days. So a lot of the things I do around projects that take about 76 days or 3 months. And I've learned that a lot can happen. So it's kind of a way to hold you by the hand and help you take that idea, the stupid idea, and turn it into your new smart reality. So yeah, RichieNorton.com, anywhere on social media, Instagram, everywhere else, Richie Norton Show podcast. You Google stupid Richie and you'll find me everywhere.
All right, man. Richie, we love you, man. Thank you so much. Send our best to Natalie and the kids. Enjoy the North Shore for me. Go catch some waves at Castles as soon as you can.
All right, man. We'll all hang sometime soon when it's legal again,
Yeah. All right. Thanks. I'll talk to you
soon. Love you guys. See you.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, Richie.
Bye.